Hello, hello. Welcome to Bouncing Off the Tee. I am your host, William Rucker. With me is my friend, Alex Smith.
That's co-host to you son of a bitch.
Oh, Alex, come on. You don't mean that.
I don't mean it. It's all banter.
He's a jokester, this Alex here.
Yeah.
Pretty smart guy.
I got the jokes.
Yes, he does.
I also came up with half the topics of today. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, Alex, since you dare to ask, I was wanting to talk about AI.
All right, we got, so far, 3 things on the menu. We got artificial intelligence. We got the current fiasco with the banks and current events. And as a complete non sequitur, we've also got awkward moments in social interactions.
Yeah.
We'll talk about those for whatever length and in whatever order and in whatever interlane order we choose to talk about them in, and whatever other bullshit that comes to mind. I have no idea. Are we allowed to swear? Do you care?
I don't fucking care.
Okay, good. Wonderful. All right, artificial intelligence. What do you think about what do you know about artificial intelligence so far, William?
Honestly, I don't know a whole lot like you do. I just know that...
I don't know a whole lot either. I don't know things. But
What I do know is that they're a great concern lately, especially from this AI. Is it a software, Chat GPT?
Chat GPT.
Yeah, is that like a software or?
It's basically. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so yeah, I've heard a lot of concern over.
I'm not totally sure like what the terminology is that applies to it, but software works. Yeah.
I've heard a lot of concern about that, where especially in schools and in colleges, like the one we're attending at right now.
Yep.
They're using plagiarism detection software to make sure that no one is cheating and using that.
And so far, the detection software sucks because I see posts on Reddit all the time about people being falsely flagged for having written something with AI when they just wrote it themselves.
I've heard from one of my professors one morning during class, he was telling us to not use that because they've been catching people.
The detection software or just ChatGPT?
Using ChatGPT to cheat,
Yeah.
And it's definitely gone to that point where professors now are talking about this to the class.
Yep.
And it also is kind of weird from what I know from on YouTube, where they can actually use AI to mimic voices. Like Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Mr. Beast, Andrew Tate.
I saw somebody upload it was Master Chief from Halo.
Oh my gosh.
He was talking about what to do if you accidentally commit tax fraud.
What?
Yeah. If you accidentally commit tax fraud, be prepared to be held responsible for your actions. Be prepared to be contacted by the IRS and potentially to spend time behind bars. I'm like, it was shocking, because it sounded so natural. Not just natural, but fitting to that kind of discourse. If I was sitting there giving an instructional video, that is exactly the kind of vocal inflection that I would aim to use. And it was all generated with AI and voice samples from the Halo games, which is shocking.
Yeah, you should totally take advice from an AI.
Why are you German?
Because I want to, Alex. Yeah, it is strange how AI has been evolving to that point where you have real people that it's mimicking the voices of, but also what you said, fictional video game characters.
Yeah, I've been sort of able to monitor the progress of it just a little bit, because I know sometime a year or two ago, I saw somebody use artificial intelligence, and this was before it got really mainstream. Somebody had used AI to mimic the voice of Alec Guinness and have him read The Call of Cthulhu.
Who's that?
Alec Guinness is the guy that played Ben Kenobi in A New Hope. It sounded like his voice, but there was a lot of unnatural like crackling or whatever kind of artifacting that was affecting the audio that made it sound just a little bit unnatural. And all of that appears to be gone, which is unbelievable.
And you're not talking about crackling like vinyl crackling, right?
No, it was some kind of weird distortion thing that was... I mean, it did vaguely sound like vinyl crackle, but it wasn't that specifically.
Okay.
So it's come a long way in just a year or two. It's amazing to me.
Let me ask you this, Alex.
Okay.
Do you think AI is going to serve humanity in a much more positive way or in a much more negative way?
I mean, I think that it will ultimately be a tool, which I think will be positive. Let me think about how to answer that. Because when you asked me that, I immediately thought of the Terminator or whatever, which is obviously not going to happen. There's not going to be killer robots or anything. And that's because everything that is developed has some kind of safety protocols involved. There's ChatGPT is criticized now because it's so heavily censored in everything that it does. And so if you ask it to... I don't even know if there's a benign example I can think of that it would try to censor, but if you tried to ask it for a recipe for meth, it would tell you that, I'm sorry, as an AI language model, I can't do that, blah, blah, blah. It'd be a HAL 9000. So in that respect, it's not going to become violent on its own, but some of the negative things that might come about is that it could reduce the job market. Like data entry, that's gone because you can just scrape data off the internet. Customer service is another thing that I've seen. AI can be used to automate that. Like you can ask it about a topic or a problem, and the large language model that's used to run ChatGPT can generate an answer to that. And with all the vocal modulation software, it can make up a new voice of a person that never even existed, and it can deliver it that way. Those are just some examples of jobs that may be automated as a result of not ChatGPT specifically, but because of artificial intelligence. So that could be negative, but if people no longer need to work because of automation, that depends on the public policy surrounding it in order for that to be livable. But that's an entirely separate issue. So it could be positive, it could be negative, but ultimately it's going to be used to at least make jobs easier. I think getting to the point where it fully takes over jobs to where people no longer need to be present, that is going to be that's still a little bit in the future, I think.
I have heard people being concerned about AI to a point where they believe that since they're going to be making jobs easier, there'll be less demand for people.
Yeah.
Which means that AI will do everything for us. We will become weak, and that's how they'll take over. They'll take advantage of us in that state. But I've also heard, and this is...
Wait, when you say they will take advantage of us, who are you talking about? The AI or...
The AI is what
okay.
I meant. And I've heard some things from what Joe Rogan has said. This is all just like theory here, okay? We're not like experts here or anything, but
no.
But something that is interesting to say is AI and just computers in general can make life easier for humans to a point where we can focus on other things like mental health, exercising, not living a sedentary lifestyle, you know?
Passions.
Yeah, exactly. Living out your passions, and obviously I don't know what's gonna happen. No one does. But it is fascinating to just think about the possibility of that being real, because that would mean that we could enjoy more things than we could have ever before. I mean, you look at a lot of people for the past several decades where they've had to work 9 to 5 jobs.
Yeah.
And when you especially look at men, often men are the ones providing for their family. Yes, things have changed from the past recent decades, from the feminist movements in the 60s and 70s. However, I do think that if this were to happen, with AI being positive and living out our passions, I think it would be great for men to be able to like be fathers with their children and spend time more with their family, you know? And obviously, we need to keep ourselves busy somehow. But I think that could be exciting in ways where we can figure out some things that are like healthy or just very new. Now, with anything new, there's going to be drawbacks or flaws with it. So we also have to be very careful with how we build this new world.
Yeah. If you've been watching the news recently, you've seen that the Silicon Valley Bank crashed. And there have been a couple of other banks. I don't know how many at this point, because I feel like the number keeps going up. I feel like there's at least 2 others, but I feel like the number may be larger now. But what happened with them was they were not doing what the banks typically do, which is to give out loans. So instead of investing their cash on hand into loans, they were investing it into bonds. And with the recent inflation and with the hiking of the interest rates by the Federal Reserve, that means that bonds have a higher interest rate, which means that the bonds that they have are crappy and they have a very low return on them because they were bought before the interest rates went up. So they have a bunch of cash, or a bunch of assets on hand that they aren't going to be able to sell. I still haven't figured out exactly what caused the crash in their value, because like it got to the point where they had to sell all of their assets off in order to cover the value of their accounts. And now the government steps in and says, "Don't worry, we'll honor everything regardless of whether it's eligible for federal deposit insurance or not." And so now this is something I saw this morning accidentally. And people are beginning to question, why the hell are we going to private banks for our money? Why not just have something like a federal program do that instead? Why, if the government's willing to cover everything, then why not just have them run the accounts in the first place? I didn't research much into it, but that is a fascinating question to me. I would like to know the logistics of that. Like, would interest be paid directly from like new money printed by the Federal Reserve? I don't know. Where would the interest come from? The interest payments come from? Because presumably it comes from the revenue that private banks get from whatever they do to generate an income. How that works with the government, I have no idea. But I would very much like to know. But then again, I'm also a crypto bro, so I don't really care what the federal government does, because if it all goes kaput, I'm just going to put all my money into Bitcoin and be done with it. Because fuck you!
Fuck you.
Fuck you, bitch.
Fuck
I don't
you. I'ma take my moolah with me. That's not Bitcoin. Gonna make myself a millionaire.
I can own my shit outright. Fuck you, bitch. I don't know. What are your thoughts on crypto? Do you have any thoughts about it?
From what I understand, crypto is supposed to be sort of like a liberating gateway versus that of conventional money or economics, right?
Sure.
Okay. I'm very open to see where things go with it.
Mhm.
I might even invest like a little bit of it, but
I would gladly help you do that if you wanted to.
but honestly, I need to research more on it before I make a huge decision like that. You know?
Yeah.
It's not like
Fair
a
enough.
small thing, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. You know, you can invest as much or as little as you want into it.
I would hope it
But-
succeeds, you know.
Yeah. And, I mean, given what's happened with the banks, I'm wondering if that's going to shake people's faith in the banks. I wonder if they'll look for an alternative, because Bitcoin's doing great. It's at like 28,000 as of yesterday. What's the price right now? I'm going to check.
What is the price, Alex? Please tell me.
And yeah, it's at 27.5 thousand currently, which is great. But part of the motivation for creating Bitcoin was a lack of faith in the banks, and it was manifested around the 2008 housing crisis, which was apparently a global phenomenon as well. Mm-hmm. I'm not educated in that or what banks exactly have to do with it, but so I'm not gonna really comment on that. But here's the benefit of it. It takes the duties of the banks. So let's say hypothetically, you are a barista at Starbucks.
Okay.
I'm using my debit card to just buy a cup of coffee from you. Mm-hmm. And so here's how that basically works. I take my debit card, I shove it in the chip reader. That little machine draws money out of my account and adds it to yours. Now, where is the money? Let me ask you this. This is not rhetorical. Where is the money in that transaction? Let me ask you that.
Remind me the scenario again.
You are Starbucks. I am a white girl buying a coffee at Starbucks.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm using a debit card to do that. So where is the money involved in that transaction?
It's in the debit card.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means I don't have a good way to articulate it.
That's fair. So debit cards draw money out of checking accounts.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes.
Now, where's the money?
It's in the checking account.
What does that mean?
It belongs to a bank that you're signed up for.
So do you imagine there being like a fixed amount of US dollars sitting somewhere physically in the bank?
No.
No? Why not?
Because it's like digitalized.
Okay. What does that mean?
It means that crypto can have like a lot of openness to being used.
Well, I'm not talking about crypto. I'm talking about like a literal like debit card.
Okay.
But so currently a checking account is said to be nominal,
Okay.
which means in name only.
Okay.
Right? So the money printed in your account, the dollar amount that you see is literally just a number in a computing system somewhere.
Okay.
It doesn't become money until you withdraw it. And so when you spend money with a debit card, you're essentially just changing the values in a big, like, not a spreadsheet, but a digital ledger, where a ledger is just a list of transactions and the order in which the transactions occur, and with the amounts and all that. So there's me spending money, there's you receiving the money, there's the technology that makes all this happen, and then there's the banks. What the banks are essentially doing, as far as I know, I could be completely wrong in some of this, but this is just to my knowledge, so if I'm wrong, please yell at me. But essentially, the function that they do for the sake of this transaction is to change the values in this ledger. Mm-hmm. But all of it's automated anyway. All of it is done with technology. If all they have to do is update some numbers, that's a very easy, low computing cost process. Why not just integrate that into the technology that I'm already using to scan the debit card?
Okay.
That's like, does that sound like a well-motivated question? Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, do you agree that it's well-motivated? I think so. And that problem, it's not even really a problem because it's a working system, but it sounds like it's more complicated than it could be, theoretically. And so that's one of the things that motivated Bitcoin. It's an alternative form of money which... Well, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit because there's an argument to be made that Bitcoin actually does not inherently simplify that process. But if the bank fails, then you either don't have access to your money or getting your money is going to take a long time because you have to go through whatever process is involved to get the insurance claim, or you have to wait for the government to fulfill the value of the account or whatever. And so one of the things that Bitcoin does is it takes the functions of the banks and it spreads it out among a network of people. And these people, they're called Bitcoin miners, and I'll get to what that is later if you want, but they essentially take over the duties of the bank. Because there's a big network of them, people can just come and leave out of the network whenever they want. and the network never stops. So if bank failures will never slow down or stop, or rather, bank failures will slow down or stop commerce, whereas Bitcoin makes it so that process is much, much, much more likely never to stop or slow down because of the ability to freely enter and exit the space. And what I was getting to before with the removal of the bank's duties entirely, there is new technology that's been added to the Bitcoin network that sort of makes that happen, to where currently, if I want to send you Bitcoin, you'll give me your Bitcoin address. Then I will send that to the blockchain with whatever technology I'm using. It'll be put in a queue. Then the transactions will be sent to a Bitcoin miner who then is responsible for adding the transactions to the digital ledger. And then because the ledger gets updated with the new values of my account and your account, that's what it means for the account values to be updated, I think. And so that Bitcoin miner person that's responsible for literally adding the transactions to the ledger takes over the functions of the banks. There's a new technology called the Lightning Network, which temporarily removes that person from the transaction. And that's motivated by the payment of fees on the transaction. You would pay a fee in addition to whatever amount I wanted to send you. And those fees can get extremely high if there's a large number of people that want to transact at the same time. The Lightning Network makes it so that there's a direct channel between me and you. And so I could, like, if I could send you 1 Bitcoin, you could send me a half, I could send you 2/3, and then it would add and subtract those values, come up with a net amount. And then when the channel closes, because they come with expirations when they're created. And so when the channel closes, the net amount is what is added to the blockchain. And so that is a way to simplify commerce a little bit, and ultimately it makes the process faster, it makes it ultimately cheaper and simpler. And so I think that's a perfect motivation for technology like Bitcoin to exist.
Ladies and gentlemen.
What do you think?
Well, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, our economics guy here.
Yeah, I'm an econ major.
Now, my thoughts on it?
Yeah.
Honestly, from what you're saying, I'm now more open to trying Bitcoin.
Good.
With the simplification of, in theory at least, of how the process of it with like purchasing and giving money to people will be.
Yeah.
I just need to do more research
Yes.
on my own to do it. And with that, can you like provide, or if you know, obviously, but can you like provide good sources that I can like find?
Yes, absolutely. I'll send you whatever the hell you want to.
Okay.
Whatever the hell you want to send. I am not an expert. I am not providing financial advice. You have the agency to do what you want with your money, and I do not.
Okay, and do you want to list out some of those sources to the people listening? Or?
There's a YouTube channel called 99 Bitcoins. There is a book called The Bitcoin Standard. The most important source, which also may not be the most accessible in terms of understanding of the writing, the most important source would be the Bitcoin White Paper, which is like the manifesto that describes, like, it came from the people that created Bitcoin, explaining everything about what it is and what it does and what it could be and all that stuff. Those are just a couple of sources I can think of that you could look into if you wanted to learn about it. I'm speaking both to the audience and to you, William. So
Thank you.
You could do that if you want.
Great. Well, we've touched AI, we've touched banks.
Yep.
Now let's get into something a little bit more simpler.
Oh boy.
Awkward moments.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta love it. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. Makes me
Yeah.
want to fucking vomit out of my eyes.
No.
Is that possible? No. Does it make me want to do it regardless? Yes.
I wonder how things would go if you could actually vomit through your eyes. That'd be terrible.
I'm trying to imagine that, and I don't want to. Anyway.
Imagine crying, but it's like just all green stuff coming down and yellow.
That's exactly what it would be. Just
pale yellow and dark green.
Chunky.
Chunky.
Chunky. Bleh, chunky. Bleh.
Chunky dome.
Anyway, vomit.
Let's get into our understanding of awkward moments here. And I mean like social awkward moments. Alex, what do you think of social awkward moments?
I think they're primarily motivated by communication errors. Just like either I will understand one thing and the other person will understand another thing, or they will say something that I misinterpret, or it's a situation that I've never been in before and I simply don't know how to behave.
I see.
They are. I mean, sometimes they're genuinely not fun if they lead to embarrassment, but sometimes it's just something that I can quickly defuse and then laugh about. I think I have developed a skill where I can learn to laugh at my own awkwardness, which I feel great about. What do you think?
So when I think of awkward moments like that, like you said, there's like error in communication, and with that, I think that's rooted with ignorance.
Yep.
With not knowing what to do within a certain situation, not knowing how to talk or respond to a prompt within a conversation, like they say something about this or that, and I just don't know what to say.
Yep.
Or it could be that you're very unfamiliar with the person, that
That's true.
you don't know what to expect from them.
Yeah.
And so all three of those things could happen, and that just makes the whole thing more awkward.
Yep.
And like you, I have adapted to a point where, for the most part, that does happen.
Mm-hmm.
I can, I don't want to say it doesn't bother me to a long period of time, but I understand it's like not like the worst thing in the world,
Yeah, it's not physically harmful or anything. It's just kind of annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And it slows things down.
Earlier today, when I had coffee with my pastor that I told you about,
Yep.
we actually saw some people that we knew from the campus ministry that go here.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was that I first met the two guys that I saw, and they were just like hanging out. And at first, the interaction was like really great, no awkwardness. But then I saw my pastor, and then he came into the the circle, and then he was talking for a little bit. And what happened was that I interrupted him because he was actually about to say something.
Mm-hmm.
What I was trying to do was I was trying to tell my friend here, well, hey, it was great seeing you, man. I'm gonna go hang out with the pastor here,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, the anxiety just came down on me to where the way it was delivered wasn't the way I wanted it to. And I could even see...
I understand that completely.
Yeah, and I could see with him, there was like some slight discomfort,
Yep.
And then later on, when me and my pastor had like our conversation near the end, I actually brought that up to him, and I asked him some advice on how to deal with that. He told me it's like a normal thing, especially with college students. And I think that could be especially the case with you and I, like people who have like autism,
Yep.
Yeah, like you, I don't like them. I love conversations with people.
Mm-hmm.
Hence why I'm doing this with you,
Hell yeah.
It really stabs the living hell out of you.
Yeah.
Sometimes emotionally.
Yep.
And I've just noticed that because it's like I want to have a good conversation with somebody, and it always hurts whenever it's just left that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've touched what awkward moments are, errors in communication, deriving from ignorance, and all that.
I think another thing that I thought of when you said interruption, which is I just interrupted you. Bam! Perfect example. I think like interruption from external forces is another thing. Like if I'm sitting there deep in conversation with someone, and then someone else decides they want to butt in. That makes me extremely uncomfortable, and if I'm sitting there interacting with more than one person at a time, I am usually dead quiet, like 99% of the time, and then when I interject, it goes nowhere because I don't know, it feels less personal. It objectively is because there's more people involved, but I mean it's something I have not figured out how to do.
I think I know what you mean. There's people who I've noticed who are very domineering in social circles and conversations.
Yeah.
Let's say this. Let's say I say something within conversation where I say, first of all, you gotta blah 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 blah. So that tells you I'm gonna make a list, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I talk about the first thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then this other person who's domineering cuts me in, and then they go on their spiel. And it's like, dude, did you not get the hint or hear me that I was going on the list here? I've had that before with one guy I talked to.
Yeah.
And I don't think everyone who's like that is malicious. I think there are people who are acknowledgingly domineering, and they understand that what they're doing is rude, or it's just something that they use as a way to intentionally dominate. But often, though, I think this is the case with most people when they do this. They just don't realize it.
Yeah, I think like one of the things I thought of was like ADHD could be a factor. Like people just speak when the thoughts come to their brain, regardless of whether it's appropriate or not. I've known people that are guilty of that. Some of those people are good people. Some of them not so, but for completely unrelated reasons. I think that influence, like whether or not I like the person in general, I think influences how I feel about them as a result of that kind of behavior, as well as like the frequency of it or whatever, or maybe the importance of the topic that I wanted to address, that kind of thing.
I know what you mean. Something I have learned from my girlfriend, having to understand why people do that when they interject when someone's speaking.
Yeah.
And I bring this up just because we had that issue with her interrupting me a lot of time whenever I would talk, right? She told me that she just doesn't want her thoughts in her mind as I'm talking to go away. So it's like, okay, this actually makes more sense here. They're not interjecting or interrupting me because they're trying to be rude. They just want to give out their opinion before I talk so much to a point where they forget about their thoughts,
That's actually a great point, because if there's something I really want to say, I'll be there's an inherent sadness that I'll feel if the conversation shifts away from that topic and it's no longer relevant for me to bring up, or maybe I'll just forget what I was going to say in the first place, and I want to keep either one of those things from happening. That's actually a really good point.
This now makes me think of...
We need to bring her on the show.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Makes you think of what?
What?
You were gonna say something. I interrupted. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, it's alright. See, it doesn't always have to be bad when someone interrupts. Shrug it off your shoulder, you know?
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
You've done that twice so far in this conversation. Because of me, I'm gonna launch myself out the window now. Bye.
But it's okay, because we're friends. And
Yeah.
It's fine.
We're cool.
We're pretty cool. This has made me think about how to be proactive with awkward moments. Obviously, you can't be perfect and prevent those stuff all the time, right?
Yeah.
But also having to be reactive with how you deal with them. Let me ask you this, Alex. How do you think someone can prevent themselves from being awkward in a social interaction with an individual person and a group of people?
I think a learned skill that will help with that is to either make everything intentional or to pretend like what you did was intentional. Like, can't think of an example, but just like, it goes back to like acting confident all the time as a way to at least make everyone. Okay, here's my answer: make the other person feel better.
Okay.
Like that's a good way to try and diffuse it. Like if I learned this from a YouTube channel called Charisma on Command. And, like acknowledge the awkwardness and embrace it, and it at least makes everyone feel better, and that's a way to diffuse it. Like I've got an example. This is something that keeps me up at night. Not anymore, but I get used to. But my friend of mine, he invited me to his wedding as the best man.
Oh, wow.
And the role of the best man is to give the first toast, but he insisted for months, as did his wife, that there would be no toast. So I did not bother to prepare that. Well, wedding day comes, and the pastor says, there's probably going to be a toast. I'm like, and then the bride and the groom come out. No, there's no toast. And then that happened at least twice. And wouldn't you freaking know it, there was a toast. So they all look at me, and I'm, but okay, look. 5 seconds before that, the groom's dad was like, "You want me to do it?" I'm like, "Yes, please, God." And then it happens, and they all look at me. I'm like, but he said he was gonna do it, and so I'm like, okay, fuck this. They're a bunch of dickheads for dumping this on me without it's like they're going against the wishes of the bride and the groom.
Oh my gosh.
So, like maybe that's just copium at this point, but that's how I've sort of kept it from bothering me all the time now. It's just by realizing, wait a minute, there should not have been a toast because it was the express wishes of the bride and the groom to have there be no toast, so there shouldn't have been one. Anyway, but the way that I handled that was to fucking put someone else on the spot, which is not a good way to do it. So I felt terrible for a while having done that, and my dad is the one who told me, embrace the awkwardness and it will go away. So I think what I should have done is to act annoyed, because I'm freaking annoyed that it happened, so I should have just been annoyed. Said, okay, I don't know why the hell I'm doing this. They told me for months that it wasn't going to happen. And then just done something else to whatever. So that's what I should have done. I didn't. So I think I've learned from that.
Okay.
I've learned from that mistake that what I could do is to simply acknowledge and embrace the awkwardness rather than try and shift it onto someone else.
I see. If you're gonna act like a clown, you might as well wear the robes of a clown.
Yeah.
Kind of like Cicero from Skyrim.
Fuck yeah. I don't know.
Yes, Cicero has a solution to awkwardness. Embrace it. Yes.
I've never played Skyrim. I don't know what he's talking about.
I need you to get into it, man. So
yeah, maybe.
So your solution would be to just embrace awkwardness
Yep.
in the moment and try to make a joke out of it.
Yep.
And in theory, that'll make people feel better.
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting because when I was talking to my pastor that I told you earlier, I said to him, my friend that I had the awkward moment with, maybe the next time I can see him, I can say, "Oh, hey, sorry, man, for the awkward moment," and then just like make a joke out of it, But then.
Depends on how much time passes, because at a certain point, it's just gonna be like whatever.
Yeah,
It would be awkward to bring it up at a certain point, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it just in my mind, it would be like like this bit of a bad thing happened, but you're leaving a positive note on it.
Yeah.
But like you just said, my pastor said that you could just say sorry for it and not like make it a bigger deal. Let me ask you this: why would making a joke out of that or bringing it up again make it like a big deal, or why would it be like a bad thing exactly?
Maybe it depends. Well, I think it would be a good thing, generally.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, one example where it might not be is like, I don't know what an awkward situation would look like in this context, but if you were at, say, a funeral, maybe then it's not a good idea to try and bring humor into it, because people are already feeling so strongly a certain kind of way that it's not really reasonable to assume that you can make people feel a different way. Like, that's one of those places where I think humor would be inappropriate.
Okay.
So that's one place where I think it would not be a good thing.
Okay. So we got that out. If someone were on the receiving end with that kind of scenario, you know, this other person's bringing up this awkward moment I had with him, you know, and he's making a joke out of it, what would go through their minds if they were perceiving it as like a bad thing or a big deal? Does that make sense?
So like if you were making a joke and then the recipient being the other person who doesn't take it well or something, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe they get angry or something. You'd have to. I mean, at that point, you probably just have to apologize and move on.
Okay.
That's, you know, I mean, it depends on the reaction. But I'm also not the most knowledgeable person to ask. But that's one thing that you could do, depending on the scenario.
In my mind, I thought of it as like a good thing more so than anything. Just because I hear people say, oh, you might not want to bring it up. It could be like more awkward or whatever. Well, I mean, I guess in my mind, I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing up like moments like that and having to like try to reconcile in a way. I know it's not like a wrong, technically speaking. I know it's not like a crime or anything, but
right. No, it's not. If it was a crime, then dystopia. But one reason that I think you might bring it up is like, if it's genuinely like weighing so heavily on your mind that you can't stop thinking about it, bringing it up with that person, even if the other person's completely forgotten about it, it might provide you a little bit of closure, just to hear from that person that they don't fucking care anymore.
Yeah.
Like I can actually think of an example of this. There was a person I knew in high school. She invited me to her birthday party, and I don't remember my exact reasons, but I felt I don't know if I forget if it was reasons of like mental health or something, but I just couldn't like bring myself to attend because I wouldn't. I think it was mental health. What was it? Like I still don't have a driver's license, and I'm perfectly content with that now. But at the time, I was really fucking insecure about that. And so having to show up with, like, my dad bringing me there, like some kid, I think that was something I was embarrassed about, as well as, like, I think my autism diagnosis was freshly in my brain, and so it was a whole bunch of insecurities, I think, that made me say no. And so I declined for whatever reason. I responded in whatever way she responded, and then eventually I quit talking to her. But later on, like a couple of years later, I fucking reached out to her out of the blue to try and reconnect. And then I brought up the fact that I didn't attend her freaking birthday party out of the blue, just like unprompted, because it made the awkwardness that I felt as a result of declining her invitation was suddenly weighing really heavily on my mind, and so I was able to bring it up. And it created another awkward situation because she had completely forgotten about it entirely, and so she was just like, it's okay, you know, it's whatever. She hadn't even been thinking about it like I had. That, I guess, provided me a little bit of closure in that.
Okay, that's good.
Oddly enough, we quit talking again at a certain point. Then she texted me out of the blue. You remember that first time the tornado whipped through Bowling Green? Mm-hmm. She texted me the day after because it happened overnight. She texted me the morning after. So she just wanted to see how I was doing. And I responded, I was like, okay, she's not saying that she's checking up on me because of the tornado, but I assumed that's what it was. And so I responded something about having dodged a bullet, and I got no response from her because of that. And I'm not going to get into her personality or anything like that, but I thought maybe that I had scared her off with the wording of that response. Because I was trying to word it in a way that I could say I could like steer it away from the tornado if that's not why she was reaching out, or if it was, then I could say that was the bullet I was dodging, or I don't know. Nothing came of that, so there's not really much more I can say about it, but that's just something I thought of. And so I don't know. It's something I think about sometimes. Like, do I want to reconnect with this person and try and see if it's possible to become friends again, or just let her go to the wind? I don't know. There's this weird, like, I don't think I communicate with her particularly well, but I want to, because I want to see where or why the issue is, if there is an issue. Mm-hmm. It's weird. I don't think I've particularly illustrated that particular thing in what I've discussed, but I always have this feeling in the back of my mind when I talk with her that there's like an elephant in the room that we haven't really discussed, that needs to be discussed, and I don't even know what it is. Yeah, that's just about everything I can think of on that topic.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Nice to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think with me, something that's always given me a bit of anxiety is when I think about how if I keep making this a pattern with people, if I have an awkward moment with them, it's like, oh, they're gonna think I'm just awkward in general, And the thing is that people like that think more than we realize about moments like that.
About awkward moments, yeah.
Yeah, but not like, obviously it's not to say that everyone obsesses over that,
Right.
Not everyone has OCD, I mean, I do, but,
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah, I have
cool.
autism, ADHD, and OCD.
Poor you.
Yeah, poor
I'm
me.
kidding.
Woe is me. But anyways.
You're struggling so much. I didn't say that. Never mind. I'm not going to assume how much you struggle, but you don't appear to be struggling. So my point is, you appear to be handling it well.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
That is what I mean.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think when it comes to like moments like that, people think a little bit more than we give them credit for. My friend from earlier that I told you about in the coffee shop, he might have disliked that moment a little bit more than I thought. However, I've also known him for quite a while. And knowing his personality, he too is someone who like has to deal with anxiety quite a bit, just given the generational problems we have. On one end, I could think, oh, he's thinking me as like an awkward guy, probably doesn't want to hang out with me, or talk to me.
Those intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, those evil thoughts that come into your head. But there's another side to this. Yes, he could have thought and believed that was an awkward moment. He didn't like it. Okay, that's fine. I didn't like it either,
Yeah.
But he could also just think that it's not like a big deal, because he understands, like me, the problems that come along with that. So the big thing to understand with moments like that is, like we said, it's not a crime. It's not a big deal.
Right.
So the big thing is having to just forgive yourself for something like that. And not having to worry about it so much, because ironically, it does weigh you down to a point where you can't really get out of it,
Yeah.
It's like you're falling into your own trap of a mistake you've already made. Keep making more of the same mistake.
So it's not just that practice makes perfect, it's that perfect practice makes perfect, because if you continue to do the same wrong thing over and over, you're never going to get any better. But, trial and error, I guess, is one way that you could figure that out, especially when it comes to social interaction. It's just something you got to do more and more and more.
And I think another thing, too, when you're alone, is practicing Socratic questioning. So you know what that is, right?
Vaguely. It was brought up to me by a therapist at one point, but I never really bothered to go through with it because I was able to resolve the problem that motivated it in other ways. Now, I'm not going to get into that.
Cocaine, I knew it.
Yes, I have a cocaine problem.
Cocaine.
Cocaine!
Is it Colombian?
No, it's Coca-Cola.
Oh.
I drink Coca-Cola, that's what I meant.
Is
like cocaine.
Is it cherry flavored, though?
Sometimes.
Sometimes?
Yeah.
What about lime?
Ew. I just like lime as a
Bro,
flavor.
you're missing out.
I dislike lime as a flavor.
No, you're missing out. Have you had
lime-flavored Coke?
Yes, you never tried that?
I didn't even know that was a... Wait, are you talking about those things for like those drink machines that have like the custom flavors and shit?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, see, those are different.
Really?
I think so, because like I got cherry Coke from that, and it tasted far more like cherry than cherry Coke. Because I think what they do is they take the Coke and then add some flavored shit into it. So it was literally normal Coke with cherry flavoring in it. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's got to be, I don't know.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely different from normal cherry Coke, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, we should, another topic for another episode for another day. Soda flavorings and all that. Just soda in general, I guess.
Writing it down.
But let's go back to what we were talking about before.
Okay.
Yeah, what were we talking about before? We were talking about awkward moments. We're talking
awkward moments, how to practice to reduce them. I think.
Socratic questioning.
So yes, okay.
Okay, so basically, the best way I could put it is Socratic questioning is exploring and understanding your emotions with asking yourself questions, but on steroids.
Okay.
That's the best way I can put it. You're questioning just like on steroids.
Socrates was a steroids addict. Little known fact.
Oh yeah, really?
He wasn't. I made that up.
Oh, you fiend.
You're the history buff. I should never be able to trick you in historical topics ever.
Well, Alex, do not insult me now. I just thought you heard it from something. Never mind. I'm not.
I made it the fuck up.
Okay. Yeah. I shouldn't take you seriously all the time. What was?
Autism moment.
Yep.
Both of us.
As my girlfriend likes to say, we are living in an autism.
She does say that. Yes, I learned that from her.
Yeah. We actually. that'll be like a different topic for another day. But anyways, Socratic questioning is where you basically just ask a bunch of questions so you can better explore and understand what it is you're feeling, and you're coming to a logical conclusion on how you should feel or solve this problem you're having with what you're feeling, right?
Okay.
Now, let's look back into awkward moments where I had someone with my friend I told you about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, why did I feel anxious? I felt anxious because I didn't know how to interact when my pastor came into the mix, because it was just me and my friend and his other friend, and I understood what to say or how to interact,
Mm-hmm.
So an unknown element just came in out of nowhere,
Yeah.
Now, what happened because of that? I interrupted my pastor, and I tried to leave the circle so that it could just be me and him, so we could have our time together, And sadly, I made it awkward with the way I talked, and me having like a weird pat on his like shoulder, saying goodbye and all that,
Yeah.
And he felt a bit discomfort. I could see it. Now, is this something you often do with people in general? No, it's not something that I do often with people in general. Now, is it something you do often with this individual person? No, I don't. It's not something that's very frequent. It's nothing for me to seriously concern myself about,
Yeah.
Now, with all that being said, should I really feel bad about this? No, because another thing too is that on their side, the moment is literally over. They might have thought about it for a little bit, but not everyone thinks like that. Thank God, and I can let this go if this other person has let that moment go. There. That's basically how I go about it all the time. Yeah. Solution for anyone out there with awkward moments or just terrible anxiety.
Yeah, it's important to note that it probably isn't as big a deal to at least one of the parties involved, so may not be worth bringing up again. I don't know. Who knows? Do you think you'll mention this to your pastor at all? Or to your friend?
For now, I don't really want to. I don't think it would be worth it,
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, if you can find closure in other ways, then, I mean, there's no point. But it goes back to, just to touch on what I said earlier. Like, the only reason I think you would ever bring it up again is if you couldn't, if there was a way that you thought might give you closure, then you could bring it up. But, I mean, if you can get it in other ways, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. What do you think you've learned with having to be in those states of awkwardness? Like, do you think you've gained anything beneficial from them?
What I've learned is that they're going to happen. Mm-hmm. They will continue to happen. Because, there's different ways to be awkward with a bunch of different people, and I'm sure there's always going to be new ways, regardless of how many different solutions I can come up with. So I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing and learn to laugh at myself, because that seems to diffuse at least the majority of them. I mean, if that thing I said about funerals or whatever happens to come to light, then Lord help me. But I'm pretty sure I'll know how to act when it would be rude or otherwise not a good idea to use humor as a defense mechanism. So I think I'm in a good spot as far as it goes.
Okay, that's cool. I'm good to hear that you've learned a lot from those moments. Yeah, I think it's especially hard for people like us who have autism. I think when it comes to people who are disaffected in the country, people who are autistic, I feel like are more not as mentioned or as brought up when it comes to that kind of stuff without they go through life. So, autism is such a relatively new thing. I mean, we're going to get underrepresented in a lot of discourse. Yeah, another topic. This whole episode has been a list full of ideas that we just presented or mentioned before, and now we're just gonna keep bringing up even more of these subjects to further explore one day. Yep, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Anything you want to say to the audience before we close out?
Subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Subscribe to his YouTube channel. If you don't, you will not get delicate German chocolate.
Buy Bitcoin!
Yeah, you will not get Bitcoin. No excellent German chocolates. 9,999.
There's got to be somewhere that sells German chocolate for Bitcoin.
Oh man, that would be amazing.
Steam used to let you buy things with Bitcoin, but they took it off.
Oh, dang.
All right, I don't want to get into a whole other topic, okay? Because you seemed like you wanted to close it down. So, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to whatever I put in the description for William here, and don't invest more than you can afford to lose. That's an important thing to say. This has been Off the Tee, We will be bouncing into your recommendations. That's fucking awful. I never done that.
It's okay.
Bye.
Bye. Love you guys.